Disclaimer, I have decided that the God Knights don't exist in this universe. While I am enjoying them in the manga, to a degree, I am not the biggest fan of them as a concept, so they have been deleted from Shadow Piece entirely. Now let's get on to the episodes. Last time on Shadow Piece, the Sin of Rev Sai managed to avenge his younger brother Boo and kill the Titanic captain Dog Q. With a fiery golden aura enveloping his body, he unleashed his most powerful attack to date, the Golden Dragon Nova. However, he didn't just use it once, he attacked over and over again, until not even a single speck of dust of the Blackbeard pirate remained in this universe. And with that, the island of Hachinosu had also been separated into 11 pieces, making it technically an archipelago now. This marked the end of the battle of the third sin of the Fleet of Death, and also his departure from the battlefield. This war, on the other hand, was far from over, as there were still countless battles going on in different parts of the home base of the Blackbeard Pirates. One of these battles included the Sin of Greed Orlumbus and his right-hand woman Columbus. They were the only members of the Fleet of Death that were wanted only dead, as the world government was chasing them after they had acquired one of the Red Poneglyphs. Together with their giant Yonta Maria Grand Fleet, they were keeping the marine ships and their soldiers from entering the island and interfering with the war of their leader Gecko Moria. Columbus's incredible might sent many marine warriors to the afterlife already, and Columbus made sure to disturb any chance of communication with her devil fruit, the Mist Fruit. The coordination of them and their followers was impeccable, and the ragtag group of thrown together marine soldiers was unable to compete. That was until suddenly the two leaders heard more and more screams, and they recognized those voices, as they belonged to their own comrades now. Out of concern, Columbus sucked all of the fog that she had created back into her body, and then they witnessed what they had just heard with their eyes. Numerous members of the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet were already lying dead on the ground, and walking over the dead bodies with no care at all were 10 people. Seeing them here further drilled down how important this war was. The world government had decided to leave one of their most important strongholds empty without anyone to guard it, as all the strongest guards were now right in front of Orlumbus and Columbus. The false awakened zone users, the 5 jailer beasts, Mino Chihuahua, Mino Zebra, Mino Rhinoceros, Mino Koala and Minotaurus. The woman that was stronger than all of them combined and also dominated them as she gave them commands, Chief Guard Sali. Next to her stood the other chief guard, Saldef. He was already playing his pitchfork flute to give commands to his personal blue gorilla army to massacre even more members of the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet. In front of those people stood the head guard, their superior, the blonde woman with a whip, Domino. It had been a while since she had to fight, as in the Impel Down jail, every prisoner just went silent as soon as they heard her heels clack on the floor. After the prison break that Blackbeard started 2 years ago and freed his Titanic captains, Domino was the one to inherit the position that once belonged to Shiryu of the Rain. But even all these people combined had no chance to compete with the Vice Warden of the government prison, a man that had almost never experienced failure in his life, and the one time in recent history he chose to demote himself to redeem his name. The Vice Warden of Impel Down, also known as the Toxic Tyrant. Magellan was here to capture or kill any criminal that had either escaped Impel Down or was still out in the world, striking fear into the hearts of the innocent. After Magellan had decided to step down from his position as Chief Warden, the man who was Vice Warden at the time stepped up and took over control of the greatest prison in the entire world. Hannibal, who always was looked at like he wasn't worthy of his position, was now the leader of all these powerful people. He did gain some weight since he was promoted 2 years ago, but that little extra fat didn't change anything about his fighting prowess. And despite of what some people might have thought about him, Hannibal was actually only weaker than Magellan, and the gap between him and Domino was rather large. Be that as it may, Magellan was still the first one to speak up when the Impel Down Warden saw Olympus and Columbus. Sin of Greed. The title is very fitting for the crime you committed, Olympus. It seemed like the man, already covered in a layer of venom, was struggling, and this time it was not because of the poison he always put in his food giving him stomach aches. I knew you were young, but I should have just forced you to follow me to the Marines. Those words actually surprised the other wardens, and also Columbus, but the Sin of Greed cleared up the confusion of everyone with his answer. Don't make a fool out of yourself, Maggie, or should I call you Magellan now? Ever since we were children, you were the one who taught me that it's our task to help the world. You were the one who brought me all those books that taught me so much. But now, you, out of all people, You are the one trying to stop me from sharing the truth with the world, the painful but important truth that will finally free the people from their shackles. In the standing kingdom of the past, both Magellan and Olympus grew up together. While they had no blood connection, the young Magellan still acted like an older brother to Olympus. And as his sense of justice was always big, he helped out Olympus's poor family in many ways. However, after Magellan had left to join the Marines, Olympus was left by himself. A grudge had never formed, but the direction his life went in was entirely different to what Magellan had hoped for. His dream was to fight together side by side with Olympus one day, but now they were standing in front of each other as enemies. As he was the leader, Hannibal also chimed in on the conversation. Magellan, stay focused. Private matters come after our duty, and whatever this devil is spouting is not worth listening to with your ears to begin with. In one swift movement, the man thrusted his double-bladed naginata at the leader of the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet, forcing him to jump backwards. After that one action, Magellan had only one more thing left to say to the man he had once seen as his younger brother. I know! A painfully aware scream left the man as he covered himself more and more in venom and also grew in size. I know, Olympus, but don't you see? Our imperfect world right now is better than a world of war and suffering only to gain that supposed freedom. Rethink the average citizen from an average island in one of the blues gives the slightest crap about a hidden truth. They only care about their families, friends, and their own well-being. This great picture you are thinking you see will only make all of these innocent people suffer the consequences of your actions. So for the sake of their peace, you have to die. The waves crashed violently against the hull of the massive Yonta Maria, flagship of the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet. In the middle of the ship, Columbus, her coat soaked and whipping in the wind, stood firm. Besides her, Olympus adjusted his cravat. His exaggerated explorer's coat utterly impractical for the fight. Poison hissed off of Magellan's shoulders, sizzling every drop of fog that touched his skin. The wooden boards beneath his feet blackened with every step. You brought this toxin upon yourself, he said, his voice low and resonant over the storm of battle noises. No one escapes justice. Columbus raised a soaked hand. Surely there's a room for diplomatic. Hydra! With that whispered name, purple-blue poison erupted from Magellan's body, like a floodgate unleashed. 3 serpentine heads of acid poison rose into the air, dragons with gaping maws and trailing tails of burning venom. The deck groaned as one head lunged, melting through the mast as it soared towards Columbus and Olympus. Olympus raised his arms protectively over the younger Columbus, as if his body would be enough to stop the attack of one of the Marines' strongest fighters. Fog formation! Abyssal cover! Columbus bellowed, slamming a paw into the slick wooden deck, crouching herself free from Olympus's cover. From every gap and crack, fog exploded outwards, rolling like cannon smoke across the deck, swallowing barrels, crates, and even men. The world turns white and silent, and the Hydra paused, confused, snapping through the haze. One dragon head pierced through the mist, but found nothing. Another struck the forecastle of the ship, its venom dissolving the rail into sludge. But it couldn't find its target. Then Magellan heard it, the creak of rigging above. He looked up, and Columbus descended from the sails, dragging a net of fog-infused ropes, each one humid, cold, and saturated with manipulated condensation. She slapped the net over one of the Hydra's heads. The fog rapidly cooled the toxin, congealing it mid-air into a viscous, useless ooze that dripped off like gelatin. You're strong, Columbus called, dropping beside Olympus again, who was now already smacking blue gorillas overboard left and right. But your poison breathes, and fog suffocates. The second dragon turned to strike. Columbus snapped her fingers, and the fog thickened into walls, like ghostly sails causing a dragon to ricochet and collapse back into itself. Magellan growled, stepping forward, and the final Hydra head coiled around him, defending its master. Columbus braced herself. Fog bank! That horizon! The entire ship's deck disappeared into a rolling fog, so thick it was impossible to see even 2 meters ahead. Magellan struck, but his toxic strike splashed harmlessly into white nothing, as the fog robbed them of range, pressure, and vision. Then, from all around him, the fog began to spin, controlled by Columbus's will, like a storm in a bottle. The mist compressed inward, targeting Magellan and every other warden with blinding pressure. The Hydra writhed, tried to lash out, but the fog had already invaded its body, tapping the cohesion from the poison and condensing the humidity inside it until it imploded, splattering harmlessly on the deck. When the storm cleared, Magellan stood in the center of the battered ship. He didn't seem damaged, but he was surrounded by fog, and the Hydra was gone as well. And Columbus stood tall, despite being the youngest in this battle, fog swirling around her shoulders like a living cloak. "You brought poison," she said, eyes blazing, "but I brought the weather." Big power can also come in small packages. And Columbus had shown that she wouldn't just be a damsel in distress that her captain had to protect. In fact, she had taken initiative, and by covering Magellan in fog, which is composed of tiny water droplets, he was sure to be weakened, as he was a devil fruit user after all. However, thinking that dealing with only Magellan would result in their victory was too simple of a strategy of the young woman, as she got hit by a hard whip attack from Sadi. The force knocked her in a direction, flying straight into the ocean, but Olympus was right there to help her out. He rushed to intercept and catch her. Even as Mino Chihuahua stepped into his way, the Sin of Greed only stopped for a second to punch him into the floor of his ship, sending him straight through all of the floors and into the ocean to drown. It didn't matter if it was a false awakened soul and devil fruit. If Olympus had a goal in mind, he would use all of his might to reach it. And so he managed to reach his second in command and rescue her from the impending dangers of the water for her devil fruit users. Just like always, you scratch my back and I scratch yours. Nothing goes unrewarded in the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet, and as Columbus had stopped the Hydra attack of Magellan to help out Olympus, he saved her as well. This battle was just about to begin. 9 people and many blue gorillas remained on the side of the Impel Down forces. Only Minochihuahua was already down, somewhere in the ocean. And Olympus and Columbus stood ready to take all of them on. And this is the end of today's episode of Shadow Piece. I hope you enjoyed it. And now we are entering another fight. Yes, this is the Yonta Maria Grand Fleet, or more specifically, Olympus and Columbus versus Impel Down. I hope you look forward to it, because this battle, well, let me just tell you, it's gonna be hot. But for now, that's all from me for today. All that to be said, stay happy, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay cultured. Pyro, out. Bye.